So we took the Gorée Island over here. Right now we're sitting here waiting at the boat port to get to Gorée Island. We got like an hour to wait. Took a cab to get here. We got some shots in the cab. He wore the GoPro here. Got some shots in the Gorée Island. We haven't looked at it yet to see what it looks like, but we'll look at it later and see what the footage is. I wasn't rapping in those, I was just sitting there, but these are good for little outtakes or whatever. Not
in the
outtakes,
cab
but
you did rap.
yeah, in the cab.
You rapped.
Yeah, so we got some shots in the cab. I'll be rapping. For some reason, a lot of the cab drivers didn't want to let us film in their car. That must be a thing here. They don't like people recording. Then one guy let us do it for a little extra money. So we got that done. So we're gonna get on a boat, try to get some shots on the boat, and see what Gorée Island look like. I don't know what it looks like over there, but I'm sure I'll be able to find some creative shots to throw in there and some, I don't know the technical term yet. I'm not an official videographer, but little scenes where I'm not rapping, take from and put in the middle of the video here and there. What's up, everybody? First of all, let me apologize ahead of time for my voice and perhaps my sleepy looking eyes, because it's actually allergy season here in Philadelphia. It's April of 2017 going into May, and pollen is probably pretty thick outside, and I have horrible allergies. Alright, so bear with me. But it also somewhat correlates to what I want to talk about, because as you can probably tell already, I look a little bit different than I did in episode 4. My hair is a little bit longer on my face. I usually keep the hair on my head either short or bald. And so my hair on my head is a little bit longer. Also, screwed up my hand and my arm, had a bad bike spill. That has nothing to do with what I want to talk about, though, aside from the fact that obviously some time has passed since I recorded my last vlog entry, and a considerable amount of time has actually passed since I first started shooting this project, which was in March of 2016, so over a year has passed. So let me explain to you why so much time has gone by, alright? Aside from the fact that, obviously I'm very busy doing multiple things at once. Got a whole lot of projects on my hands. Aside from that, though, because there actually is a method to my madness as far as why I'm growing out the hair on my face and my head. Sudan still has to shoot his portion of the video in New York. And just to refresh your memory, the reason why we're shooting at that part in New York is because New York is the birthplace of hip-hop in the United States on the East Coast, alright? So, keeping in line with the whole theme of the sunrise in the East, I already shot my portion of the video in the eastern region of the world, Senegal, Africa, alright? So this whole thing is supposed to symbolize going back to our roots, the human race, hip-hop, to symbolize resurrection of the art form. Okay, so he still has to shoot his portion of the video. Not only does he have to do that, but I also have to shoot a scene of me going into the water off the shores of New York with a zip-up, like a heavy zip-up hoodie on, because I already shot scenes of me coming out of the water in Africa with that hoodie on and jeans, right? So there's supposed to be a scene somewhere after Sudan's verse who opens up the video. Between that verse and my verse, where I come in second right after the hook, this simulates me going into the Atlantic Ocean to sort of symbolize a reversal of the transatlantic slave trade, me going back to Africa and coming out of the water, sort of cleansed, so to speak. So here's the problem. Being that I'm wearing a zip-up hoodie, sort of like a heavy, almost like a coat-like thing, this scene would have to be shot in either the fall or the spring, which is now, right? Last fall, we didn't get this scene done because the people I was supposed to get to help me shoot this scene, we couldn't get everybody on the same page between myself, Sudan, and, the people who were going to help us shoot the scene. Couldn't get everybody on the same page for the entire fall. The reason that it would have to be shot in the fall or spring is because if Sudan shoots his verse walking around the streets of New York in the summer, you're going to have people in the background with shorts and tees on and stuff like that, and it wouldn't match up with the clothes that I have on. And if we shot it in the winter, obviously the water's too cold and I would catch hypothermia or something. So, so it has to be shot in the fall or spring. Okay, the whole fall went by. We didn't take advantage of the opportunity, no matter how hard I tried. And this kind of just goes back to the whole issues I had with the video in the first place, and why I had to go to Africa and, you know, do everything, as I was saying, most of the stuff on my own until my sister would come over later. So we had to skip the entire winter, and now we're here in the spring, and the temperature is shifting fast. You know, some days it's 80 degrees, some days it's 60, some days it's 85. So this has to be done now, you know, before it gets hot, because then we'll miss our window opportunity again. Then I'll be skipping the summer, and then it'll be going into the fall. The reason I'm letting my hair grow on my face and my head is because last fall, we kept making plans to go to New York, you know, every other weekend or every other 3 weekends or whatever it was. Obviously, we never got to go. So what I wound up doing was shaving my head every time we planned on going to New York, shaving my head bald, trimming my beard to look exactly like it did when I was in Senegal, for obvious reasons, trimming it, you know, getting it closer to the face, only to have the plans keep falling through, right? So this got to be a pain in the butt. Eventually I said, you know what, this situation is so unreliable. What I'm going to do is just let my hair grow out, and I'll just play it like the symbolism in this reversal of the transatlantic slave trade will be in New York. You know, my beard will be grown out, I'll be looking a little bit more unkempt, and once I swim back to Africa, or that's simulated in the video, I'll come out of the waters in Africa with a bald head, my beard closer, looking a little bit cleaner, and, you know, it'll help express this whole idea of me being cleansed. So again, this is just yet another workaround that I had to figure out for, you know, just issues that come up when you have to kind of plan a video or a whole project like this on your own to compensate for unforeseen issues that may arise. And then I also had the idea of when Sudan is spitting his verse in New York, and I'm, you know, with him in the background or amongst the people that are with him when he's spitting his verses, I'll look more and more wary as his verse progresses. And then once I reach the shores of New York, I'll be kind of like wary, almost to the point of passing out. And then, you know, I walk into the water. I don't think I'm gonna walk completely in that water, but I'll walk up to my knees and then simulate the rest, have it fade to black, whatever. Then I already shot the scenes where I'm coming out of the water in Africa. Alright, so I'll now take you back to the ferry terminal where Ciré, Ikhlas, and I are waiting for the boat to take us to Gorée Island. Alright, so just to show you what they do here, look. So my nephew's on the right is 500 selfie, which is like $1. And mine was 5,200, which is like a little over $10. So you see his says resident Senegalese on phone. Mine says resident Afrique adult.
Not resident.
Non-resident. But why do they have Afrique? What does that mean? They think I'm an African but not Senegalese?
Yes.
Alright, so you see how much more I got charged. Now, my thing is, and the other adult, he got charged $1,500, which is like $3. So I can see if they was doing that for white people, but they charging African Americans that, and I mean, it just don't seem right. First of all, I just wanted to point out that in reviewing the footage and looking at the tickets, what it looks like is a surcharge for all non-Senegalese residents. Basically a discount for Senegalese people as opposed to, you know, extra fees for all African American or Black American people. Which sounds a little bit better, although I do think, my personal opinion, I think it would be appropriate to, you know, have a discount for Black Americans, since we are the primary byproduct of the transatlantic slave trade, and it would encourage more Black Americans to come to the museum and patronize the place. But then you would have to get into the whole, perhaps you'd have to get into the whole discussion of what, you know, true brotherhood is amongst Black people internationally, and the issues that we face in that regard. One thing I learned in being in Africa a couple of times now was that many Africans, not all Africans, but many of them regard African Americans or Black Americans as simply being American instead of, you know, African or extension of themselves, because what they see is the culture, not the ancestry. Sometimes they'll even regard us as white, which, you know, I can't necessarily say is wrong as far as viewing us as American and not African, but it is problematic. But, you know, then we have to get into the whole discussion about, you know, the very artificial idea of race versus the more real ideas of ethnicity, nationality, and things of that nature. But, you know, a whole thesis paper could be written on the corruption behind these labels and whatnot. So anyway, back to our journey to Gorée Island. Here you see me on a boat trying to communicate with Ciré, and I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm basically trying to get a signal to go, and I wind up standing there for a few minutes doing nothing because I didn't know he was recording the whole time. There was more than just a language barrier with Ciré. He just didn't seem to understand any of the basic sign language stuff that I was doing, like stop or, record. He didn't seem to, grasp any of that. So, he's doing stuff like zooming when I'm telling him to focus, and, with the language barrier, Ciré wasn't very good at speaking English, and I actually would have preferred if I tried to speak French, or at least we can meet halfway, because we're in a French-speaking country, French and Wolof, and I need to brush up on my French anyway. But, he was adamant about continuing to speak English. He's very determined, and, he was a pretty stubborn guy. So I didn't want to rain on his parade. And this was actually kind of hilarious and kind of weird, because, again, keep in mind there's the sound of the water now. There's the sound of these girls next to me laughing and joking and taking selfies, guys below making noise and whatnot. And remember, I have to try to keep rhythm with the actual song. So if I rap out loud, I'll be drowning out the actual song that's now playing in my pocket. And I want to create as little work as possible for me in post-production when I sync up the video with the song, right? So I have to lip sync. And I felt weird because these girls are probably sitting here like, what is that guy doing? Like, they don't know it's a cameraman across the way recording me. And even so, they're like, why is he lip syncing? And then on top of it, there's these girls on the other side of me taking selfies, and they were pretty close, like you can see it in the video. So I'm sure when they look back at their shots, they're gonna see a guy in the background like, they're probably gonna be like, what's this guy doing in your photo? But in a weird way, like even if I was in New York, I would expect people to be more nosy about what I was doing. I mean, I shot video footage in New York in Times Square on a busy day, and people would come by and like stop and look at what you're doing, ask questions and stuff. But in Senegal, people just didn't seem to give one damn about what I was doing. Tourist or native, it didn't matter. Like people didn't seem to care, and it was in a way it helped me feel comfortable because it helped me be a little bit less self-conscious in a foreign country. Reached Gorée Island. You can see in the background. So we're gonna try to we got some shots on the boat, and we're gonna try to get some creative shots here. So we'll walk around a little bit and see what we can capture. Show them how to do it. Focus and all that.
Let me feel.
Here I'm trying to get a particular shot, and I'm trying to explain to Ciré, give him some directions and stuff. But he doesn't, again, the language barrier comes into play. He doesn't seem to understand what I'm saying. I never got whether he understood the word focus. And I have a feeling he never understood that word. Iglas is off to the side because he came along to serve as sort of the translator. And then you see him come over at some point trying to explain things to Ciré. And then he says, let me film it. And then this is another thing I had to deal with while I was on Gorée, because those two had this, they kind of butted heads a lot. Iglas, wanted to film. Ciré was determined and stubborn, so they seem to have this little issue with each other, but mainly coming from Iglas' side. So now I'm going to go through and show a collage of images and accompany it with some narration, just to give you an idea of some of the shots we got or didn't get while we were on Gorée Island. Come on, scroll a couple again. Here the image is too dark and it wasn't focused all that well. Had some spectators going by saying something about hip-hop. Tried to get another shot, some different scenery in the background. I didn't like my energy too much this whole trip. You'll see the difference between my energy before my sister came and after my sister came. And that's what a director is supposed to do, like get certain emotion and energy out of subjects. I just wanted to get some images here of me walking while rapping. The camera is a bit shaky. I mean, these were issues I figured we'd have. The shaky camera issue. I had my little nephew filming at this point, and You know, usually you'd use some type of a dolly or something like that, but all we had in these situations were 2 hands, 2 feet, and inexperienced camera people. So I already knew I'd have to work around this issue in post-production where probably 75% of the video work would be done. How do you work around it? Well, you show short bursts, as I explained in one of the earlier vlog entries, not extended clips when you put the video together. And you just, you know, put it together in such an overall creative, total presentation that it looks like the shakiness was something you wanted to achieve on purpose for creative reasons. So I'm going to end this entry here, and in the next entry, entry 6, I'll continue with more clips showing the second half of our trip to Gorée Island and accompany it by some narration explaining it all. And I know you gotta be sitting there thinking right now, how in the world this guy is gonna throw on the same t-shirt and expect us not to notice he looks entirely different. Well, I just wanted to keep it consistent with the t-shirt. But I told you in one of the earlier entries that this is an ongoing project. I'm doing it as I go along, so there are gonna be some wild differences in how I look. I only thought it would happen entry to entry, not within the same entry. And I thought it would happen with clothes, not my entire look. But the reason that I'm cutting it right now is because as I was working on this entry, things got a little bit more detailed. It got longer than I expected it to be. And it started to slow down my computer because I don't have necessarily high-end equipment yet. So it takes a while for my computer to process certain things. So as the clips, you know, with all the clips, the video clips, the narration clips, and effects and whatnot to go into putting these documentaries together, it started to slow my computer down. So I decided to cut it in half into 2 parts. So there will be one more entry for day 2. What I should have done is actually said I have a twin or something like that, so I won't have to go through this whole explanation. But hopefully you get it now. Won't have to explain it again. The idea really is to, like I said in one of the other entries, to get to a point, hopefully soon, where I won't have to go through much narration at all. Like the narration that I did while I was in Senegal with the, you know, selfie vlog material will carry the entries for the most part. But in the meantime, I just want to get you to the point where all these details are a second nature to you, the viewer, as possible, so that it can be assumed in the future entries what goes into the making of all of this. Now, there's a reason why it looks so different, and there's actually good news behind it. Last week, we wound up finally going to New York and getting the footage done that we needed to get done for the Sunrises in the East video, which is largely what this whole project is a build-up to. And the weather wasn't perfect. It wasn't like I wanted it to be, but we figured out workarounds as we usually do, and we made it happen. So now that the video footage is done that I've been trying to get done for like the past year or so, and you'll see details about this, of course, in later entries, I can now move forward with putting the video together, and it's still going to take a little bit of time in between me working on this documentary series and my music and other things I'm working on. But it's out of the way. I can breathe a little bit easier now that I know I have it, and I can cut this hair off my face and my head that I was dying to cut off because it was annoying me. 2 fingers, 1 love. See you next entry. And I just got to be